All right. Good afternoon, Oslo. Welcome to my 420 Blazor talk. Yes, okay, great. This is the energy I'm looking for. Second to last session of this day, and we're going to nail it. We're just going to skip the last session and go to drinks, right? That's where we're going. No, that's not nice to the other speakers, so let's not do that. We're going to talk about MAUI, Blazor, Blazor and MAUI, all these exciting things. I have this epic demo that tends to fail, so we'll kind of see how that goes today. I'm kind of looking up. I mean, I'm used to looking up, right? I'm not very tall, but this is next level. Okay, so this is great. We're gonna have a good time. So for the ones who don't know who I am, which makes sense, clicker. Oh, this is not working. Why is this not working? This is interesting. Okay, technical difficulties already. My name is Gerald. I'm all the way here from the Netherlands, so that's not that far. I work at Microsoft on the .NET MAUI team, but I also like to dabble a little bit with Blazor and Blazor Hybrid because that is built on top of .NET MAUI, amongst other things, so that's what we're going to see here today. You can find me by that unpronounceable handle there, GF Versluis, JF Versluis. It's not that hard. On like basically every social media channel that you can find, except for like YouTube. It works there too, but I there envisioned like, okay, maybe just my first name and last name, maybe that's better. But you know, I do a little thing. If you're interested in like .NET MAUI and Blazor and some other things with .NET, you can go there as well. So like and subscribe and do all the things that Nick Chap just asked you to do, right? Okay. So for the agenda today. It's kind of like easy, right? Like what is .NET MAUI Blazor, right? It's not that hard. If we dissect that a little bit, we have maybe a couple of more ingredients. First, we're going to look at like what is .NET MAUI. Do we have .NET MAUI developers in the house? All right, cool, great. I don't see anything. I'm just responding and hoping that there's people. Yeah, all the way up there. The green shirt, is it? Yeah, yo, woo. Okay, great. .NET MAUI Xamarin. Everyone transitioned off Xamarin. It's out of support. You should have started a year ago by this point. No? Okay, perfect. Everyone transitioned. That's great. What is Blazor? Who does not know what Blazor is? Oh, okay. I have a section for you. It's going to work. Fine. Perfect. And then we're going to put it together. And what is .NET MAUI Blazor or Blazor Hybrid? We have a kind of like different things. I think the official term I need to use from marketing is like Blazor Hybrid. So I don't care. I'm just going to call it .NET MAUI Blazor. So let's start with the first part. What is .NET MAUI? Well, .NET MAUI is our cross-platform offering based on C# and .NET. So basically, you're just going to build apps based on C# and .NET, but you can now suddenly deploy them to iOS, Android, macOS, iOS, all these crazy cool platforms. Tizen even. Tizen developers? No, I'm just going to make you put your hands up all the time. It's fun. No? Okay. So that's what we've been building. And kind of like to summarize our work, very straightforward, it's like we do this. We translate these native controls, and we put a little layer on top of that. And then we say, like, hey, we have this activity indicator, and we translate that for you to a UI activity indicator on iOS, and then a progress bar on Android, and of course, like whatever the equivalent is on macOS and Windows and Tizen, right? There's one problem. Android, it's not a progress bar, okay? It's a circle. That's I don't know. Android does that. Who is Team Android? Yeah. iOS? Oh, I love Oslo. Okay, better. You're my friends. Okay, great. This is gonna hurt my evaluation later on. Okay. And then we do that for all the other controls, right? So basically, what we do is we have this abstraction layer that we call .NET MAUI, and then we have a slider, a activity indicator, a button, a label, whatever control you can come up with. 40 plus controls at this point, and we will translate that to however it should look like on that platform, right? So that is our paradigm. We have other frameworks. Also within .NET, but also outside of .NET, who kind of like draw the whole UI, right? That's, you know, has its time and place. That's very cool too. But we have made the choice to kind of like do it this way. We're experimenting with some other things there as well to also do drawn controls, perfectly possible with .NET MAUI, but this is the majority of what we've been doing right now. So if we, if we put that in a little bit of a architecture diagram right here, then how does that work under the hood? Well, you have this app code, right? You have this $1 million idea that you want to work on. That is what you want to be focused on. That is where you want to be productive. That's going to make you rich, and so you don't have to visit conferences like NDC anymore, right? So that's what you want to focus on, and you want to roll it out on like one or more of these platforms, right? If you're going to only build for one platform ever, you know that it's going to be only this platform. maybe this is not the choice for you, or you really like XAML, maybe that's it. You're totally welcome to do it, but the real value of .NET MAUI is rolling it out on more platforms. So if you were to typically do that, you would have to learn about all these different SDKs, iOS, Android, Windows, macOS, all these different things, and you would have to build the same app kind of like 3-4 times, right? Which is not what we want to do. I don't know about you, I'm a very lazy developer. Copilot made these slides for me, so there we are. What are all the layers kind of like in between that you want to have here? So first we have the .NET runtime, and that is now unified. That is a thing. We can have that running on all of these platforms. If you want to really dive into it, it still uses Mono for like everything except Windows basically, but we unified that. You don't have to care about that anymore because we created this unified .NET base class library, right? So you're just talking to that, and the rest we will take care of. So you don't have to care about that anymore. Then on top of that, that's kind of like where the real magic happens. That is where there is teams who do all the hard work basically. They create wrappers, bindings for all the things that are available on Android, on iOS, so that's like tens of thousands of APIs per platform right there, like Android, a lot of APIs, iOS, a lot of APIs, and they're just going in there, doing all the work, making that available in C# and .NET. And I have to say nice things about them because someone from the team is here as well, so I want to make sure that he still likes me after this. No, but that's like where the real work happens, right? Like, even if you're not using .NET MAUI, you can still build apps with C# and .NET if you go sit on this layer, basically. And then on top of that, to make it even easier, because if you're going to go this route, then you still have to create your UIs with like storyboards and that kind of like exotic things. So if you want to also share your UI, you're going to go with .NET MAUI, and that's like the layer on top. So we now have access to everything, all the APIs in C# and .NET, and we're going to make that easier even for you to define that button, define that slider, that progress bar that is a circle, and we're going to make that look pretty on the device, right? So the only thing that you have to care about is your app code that you want to write, the business logic, and then know how to work with .NET MAUI, right? The way we kind of like do that, like, it's very typical to how .NET works. We just have this base set of like .NET libraries, all the gray boxes right there, and then we sprinkle on top kind of like the APIs that are specific for that platform. So for iOS, you have like all the kits, right? All the APIs on iOS are called something kit, map kit, UI kit, Siri kit, all the kits. And then on Android, you have like another set of APIs that will kind of like complement the .NET framework APIs, and then there you have it. So we have this rich library of controls already. We have like 40 plus controls, navigation, all the kinds of things, adaptive layouts, et cetera, and you're wondering like, okay, Gerald, this is all nice, but this is .NET MAUI. Why the heck are you telling me this? Well, one of those controls is the Blazor web view, and that's what I'm working up to, all right? So that's what we're going to see later on. Then, for those two people right there, what is Blazor? Okay, basically web development without JavaScript. That's always the kind of like fun summary of this thing, right? Like we don't like JavaScript and we're going to do without it. Yay! It's a better world for everyone. So if you think about kind of like these cool single-page applications, these rich applications with dialogues, with grids, a nice bar right there, these really rich experiences inside of your browser, then you automatically think about like these JavaScript frameworks, right? They're usually, oh no, spoiler alert, oh, I shouldn't have created these slides. Okay, now I'm gonna mess it up here. Okay, you typically think of like all the other frameworks about Angular, React, Vue, and they're all based on JavaScript, right? And I can make jokes about JavaScript all day here, ha 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 ha. Well, it messed up the joke, all right? But then we were like, okay, what if we can still make you do everything with C# and .NET, right? That would be even better. It's not about making fun of JavaScript. I love doing that. But it's all about the shift that you have to make for productivity, right? You have to switch languages, and you're like, oh, how to do that thing again in JavaScript? You have to go out to Bing and use Google and Copilot and all these kind of things of like, oh, how did I do that thing again with jQuery? I don't even know if jQuery is a thing anymore, but it's all about that context switch, right? We wanted to get rid of that so that you can build these cool applications also with C# and .NET. And that's why we invented Blazor, right? So you can still use C#. You don't have to use JavaScript, right? We got rid of that. If you still want to use it, you totally can. If you have this one library, this one thing inside of JavaScript that you can't get around, you have to use that, you totally can. There is interop and everything, but you don't have to, right? You should be able to stay inside of C# and .NET to do all these things. You can use the tooling in the IDE that you love, Visual Studio Code, maybe something else that you love working with, and the consistent ecosystem. You don't have to download the half of the internet in NPM packages anymore. You can now just download a quarter of the internet with NuGet packages, which is much more better. And we have just celebrated, I think last year, like 20, 25 years of .NET. So that probably accounts for some stability and continuity right there that you can build upon. So how does that work? Well, we kind of like have two flavors. As of .NET 8, there is a little bit of more nuance in there, but typically this would be how you would do it. We have like Blazor Server, which is more kind of like your traditional approach, if you will. It's still a Blazor application, but now it runs on a very beefy server, goes very fast, does all the computing for you, very cool. But it is a single-page application, so it's only going to update the things inside of your application that it needs, right? Only the bits right there. And to do that, it uses a SignalR connection. Now, SignalR, I have a whole talk on that, which is not at this NDC, but this is kind of like the only thing that you need to know about it is like a real-time connection built inside of ASP.NET. So you have a connection and you can go back and forth with like all the data that you want to do. It's actually incorporated also in the fun Epic demo that I have at the end, which I hope will work because now I'm putting the pressure on. But you can do all these kinds of real-time things with that, and it's built in, it's used by Blazor, right? So without knowing, you've probably already used it, which is super cool. And then we have the kind of like other flavor, which is more closer to how it would be with JavaScript, where the actual application fully runs on the client. And that's Blazor WebAssembly or Blazor WASM for short. And there you will download that Blazor application, and it can be the same application, right? It's relatively easy to switch between the different hosting models here. And you can just take that same Blazor application, pull that to the client, and now it can directly communicate with the document object model, right? So inside of the browser, it can have advantages, disadvantages. It can have all these things. With Blazor Server, you are going to have that persistent connection, so you're not really creating any offline applications or no offline applications at all. With Blazor WebAssembly, you totally can, but you have that initial download size to take into account because you're going to download the whole application. Maybe there are some security things in there because people can easily disassemble the whole thing. So all kind of things to consider, but each with their own pros and cons. Then, like as a third option, we have .NET MAUI Blazor Hybrid. Well, we have Blazor Hybrid on top of that. So we have then three kind of like flavors here: server, WebAssembly, and hybrid that we're going to go into a little bit here. I just mentioned like for .NET 8 we have a little bit more nuance in there. So now you can really like. I thought this is a cool story. True story. I thought that we had a term for that, which is Blazor United, Blazor Unified. Does anyone remember even that? Is it kind of like Nelson Mandela effect that I thought like, hey, this is something and no one remembers? But I was told while creating these slides in a workshop that we just did, like, hey, no, that term we got rid of that. We don't say that anymore. But what we can do is kind of like it's just part of Blazor right now, which kind of like means that you can say per component, per page, per whatever you want. You can kind of like say, hey, do I want to use that Blazor WebAssembly mode or the server mode, or automatically, it figures it out automatically. So there's all kinds of cool stuff that you can do with that, but all not relevant to Blazor Hybrid, which is what we are really interested in. So Blazor Hybrid, if we put .NET MAUI and Blazor together, then what do we get? This cool animation, that's what we get. Woohoo! All right. So now we have like Blazor on the one side with all these cool technologies, and you can really go into the browser, everyone's browser, every device that has a browser, you can bring your Blazor application to, so you have that full reach. But maybe we also have, like on the other side, we have everything on .NET MAUI, we have the .NET runtime running on all these devices and all these platforms. So maybe if we get rid of kind of like that web part and web hosting and servers and that kind of stuff, because Blazor, it's just a .NET application, and run that directly on the .NET runtime that we have available on all these platforms, maybe we can create some cool things there as well. So that we put that together, and then we call that Blazor Hybrid. So what exactly is Blazor Hybrid? Well, Blazor Hybrid is an extension of the two other flavors that I just mentioned. It's built on top of .NET 8. It started in .NET 6, so you can also, if you're on .NET 6, you can start using it there as well. But now also, of course, .NET 7, .NET 8, and .NET MAUI. But the really cool thing is, we didn't just build it for .NET MAUI, we also implemented it for WinForms and WPF. No? No applause? No yay? No? All right. So, because what happens is, you will go to these conferences and you will see these amazing speakers and they will be like, oh yeah, this is all the cool new stuff and you should be using that right now. And then you go Monday back to your job and you're like, yes, VB6 legacy application, woo, let's go. Right, so that's the reality. So to kind of like make these modernization paths happen, we also created this Blazor web view because that's the control that we implemented to make all this work. We also implemented that for WinForms and WPF so that you can kind of like modernize from the inside out, because that rewrite that we were always promised, like, oh, we're going to rewrite this whole application, is not going to happen, right? No budget, no time, no nothing, it's not going to happen. So with this, you can just take that Blazor web view, put it inside of your WinForms or WPF application, and start kind of like porting your Blazor components inside of that web application and start building new things from within your gray, boring WinForms applications with that data grid that everyone loves. So there's that. And the other cool thing, I'm going to show you this in a demo. I'm just blazing through, see what I did there, blazing through the slides here to get to a little bit of code. But we implemented it through that Blazor web view, which is just another control inside of the toolbox for .NET MAUI and WPF and WinForms. But you can use that as a control, right? Just as a button or a label or whatever. So as this little piece inside of your application, or you can say, hey, I want to have this web view like span the whole viewport of my application and just going to build the whole application in Blazor that way. And that's what we're focusing on mostly today. But I'm also going to show you how to do the other thing. So I've got you covered, all right? So with .NET MAUI Blazor, you can build cross-platform native apps that run on Windows, macOS, iOS, and Android, which is not coincidentally all the platforms that .NET MAUI support, right? Because .NET MAUI, with .NET MAUI, we have the .NET runtime on all these platforms, and now with Blazor, it's just a .NET application. We can run those there as well. You can reuse your existing Razor class libraries, right? So I didn't really highlight that in the earlier slide, but it said like in the for the Blazor server and Blazor WebAssembly, you saw that little Blazor application, and one little layer was the Razor class libraries, the Razor components. It has a little bit of different names sometimes, but they mean the same thing. And with that, it's super easy. You just have this .razor file, and you can take that and put that in a separate project, and now you suddenly have a reusable project that you can reference from all kinds of projects. And then if you take that project and put it in a NuGet, now you suddenly are a library maintainer and you will have a not so great life because everyone wants something from you. No, but you can really reuse those components and to the extent that you want, right? And you can leverage those between all these different flavors that we see here without any changes. You can just say, hey, I want to take that component and I want to use it on my Blazor server application, Blazor WebAssembly application, and my Blazor hybrid application. And that is where I think, and this is personal opinion, where the true power is of like sharing code this way as well. Because the question is going to come up. It's not really a great setting for doing questions like this, so if you have any questions, come up after. But usually a question that comes up is like, hey, why does not .NET MAUI have not a web target, right? We can just roll out to iOS and Android and Windows. Why not just have a web target in there and also deploy to the web? Because I don't like it, okay? That's why we're not doing it. No, we're kidding. So I personally don't really believe in that approach. I think you will have to put a lot of effort in making that happen and making that work correctly and feel work and feel in a way that it belongs on the web, right? And I think if you're going to put in that much effort, then you might as well just have a separate project for Blazor, stick everything that you want to share in a separate component, and then kind of like share it that way, right? I think that will be an even easier path if you want to do it like that. And you have full platform device access, right? So that's kind of like a big difference as well. If you run Blazor through a browser, then you're going to be bound by the browser sandbox, right? Which is a good thing. We don't want to go to ndcoslo.com and then suddenly our whole hard drive is formatted, right? That's not what you want to see happening probably. But kind of like the good news is if you would go like make an NDC Oslo Blazor hybrid app, then you can totally format your hard drive if that's what you want, okay? So that's kind of like the difference. You will have like access to all the things that are are available on this platform, like geolocation, like a flashlight if that's available, camera, like all these fancy things. You can just go in there and get all the data and do all these amazing things with that. It's kind of like repeating what I already said, but Blazor Hybrid, just to be very clear, I mentioned it a couple of times, it is a .NET application already. Right, like with the whole WebAssembly story, we're compiling it to WebAssembly, which is an intermediate language, intermediate layer, and then we can run it in the browser because browsers support that now. But to begin with, it's a C#.NET application, and we're just compiling that to something that the web browser understands. But if we don't do that, we just have a .NET application, which we can use. So we don't have to spin up any server process or do any fancy things or transpiling that TypeScript does or that kind of stuff. We can just run it as a .NET application. So no HTTP request unless you kind of like want to, right? Typically, probably your application has to go out to a REST API to get some data, send all the privacy sensitive data of your users there so you can make money. But if you don't want to, you can just create that offline application and do nothing else, right? There's no HTTP request, just that initial download from the App Store, right? Because you're now suddenly building an app that you can put in the store. And kind of like the only thing that you're doing with this is replacing that XAML, because if you're building .NET MAUI, it's typically done in XAML. You can do it with C# and other things, but typically it will be XAML. Not everyone likes that. And you can kind of like replace that XAML with now Razor syntax, which everyone seems to like. We'll see that in a little bit. So without further ado, actually, let's just hop into some code and not come back to any slides for a while. So just to, I am on a Mac right here because everything is cross-platform. I've gone a little bit wild. I tried if I could remote desktop in my Windows machine. I got both here. Would it be more, who is using Windows more, I guess? Who would like to see Windows? Because it's more familiar? Yeah, okay. Okay, we're going to do Windows, fine. No, wait, I'm going to start with macOS first. I'm going to do Windows later. Okay, I changed my mind. I like to challenge myself and build a little bit of pressure, so I mixed up some things. We're going to see how it works out. Okay, first macOS. So if you want to get started with this, it's all built on, like, I'm going to show you the .NET MAUI way, right? So you want to get started on a Mac if you want to build iOS and macOS apps. Kind of like your only option is to have a Mac at some point. We have some other options there, but the easiest way without the least resistance is to get a Mac and start building with that. Luckily, we have great tools for that. Actually, today, the VS Code extension for .NET MAUI is going to be publicly available for all of you. So if you have VS Code users here, depending all right. Pretty good, pretty good. So you can use that on Windows, on macOS, on Linux if you want. So you can do it on all these things, and it has like great extensions. So since a while, we already have like the C# Dev Kit, right? That gives you all kinds of like features that are available in Visual Studio Full or Proper, or people have different names for it. To kind of like match the experience that you would have in Visual Studio on Windows, you will get a Solution Explorer and a Test Explorer and get some other kind of like things. You will have the exact same debugger that is available in Visual Studio as well. So we have all that for kind of like your better .NET and C# overall experience. And then on top of that, we also created the .NET MAUI extension right here. If you install this, it has a dependency on the C# Dev Kit. So if you're interested in like .NET MAUI and Blazor Hybrid, you'll just install this and it will bring down all the other bits as well, the dependencies, and then you can kind of like start building with that. It has like all the documentation here that you can read through how to set all the things up. And once you do, you can kind of like start building. So we can do that in different ways. If you're going to look through like, hey, the C# Dev Kit, right? This is for the people who are not very familiar with VS Code, who was, that was me kind of like 6 months ago. You can bring up this little menu here in the top by clicking it, or you can do Command-Shift-P or Control-Shift-P on Windows, and you will get this thing. And then whenever you do like the angle bracket right here, you can start doing commands. So again, it's like a little bit used to for VS Code, but this will, you can now search for files, right? You can do this thing, but if you do the angle bracket first, you will get all the commands and also from all the commands from the extension. So you can see all the .NET things here, and I think you can create a project this way if that's what you want. Create things, apparently not. See, I'm a command line person as well. So you can also do it through the command line, right? You have all the commands here, but you can also do it through the command line and just say, hey, .NET new list, and you can see all the templates, right? So just see that we've installed all the things correctly here. And boom, yeah, there we are. We conveniently named it with .NET first, just so we make sure that we are now on top of every list, right? Very convenient. And we have a couple of .NET apps right here, right? We have the .NET MAUI app, which is just the .NET MAUI app with XAML and all that kind of stuff that we've just learned, but also the .NET MAUI Blazor hybrid app, which is the short name MAUI Blazor. And then we have some class libraries and item templates just to add a new page and that kind of stuff, right? So let's just do .NET new MAUI Blazor -n to give it a name, and that will automatically give it a subfolder. I don't know, think green. You know, maybe by the end of this session you have like, green is something I associate this session with. That might be a good thing. So let's go into there. And then, little pro tip right here, you can do VS Code. I have the insiders one. Oh, sorry, not VS Code, it's code. And then I have the insiders one. If you don't have insiders, you can leave the dash insiders out. Dot, that's like this directory that I'm in, right? -r, boom. And it will reload this window with the folder that I was in the command line. Still no applause? Okay, it's fine. It's fine, it's fine. You know, in the other NDC in London, they did that, but it's fine. I'll review you as an audience as well. And then you get this whole thing in Visual Studio Code, right? So that's super cool. And you can see if you, besides the two people there who didn't know Blazor, the rest all knows Blazor. So if you've been looking at that template, you see some familiar stuff, right? We have this www right here. We have like the components right here. This is a little bit of an updated template as of recently, so it might look a little bit differently if you've looked into it a while ago. And then we have like the pages and the layout and all that kind of stuff, right? So that's all Razor files. And kind of like, let's just run it first, right? So we can kind of visually, I'm a visual person, Visual Studio, right? So let's just do that. Let's do Command-Shift-P right here. And .NET MAUI, you can pick all the devices, right? So if you have everything set up here, we can go out to that .NET MAUI extension. I can pick an iOS device, or I can pick a macOS device. Let's do that. And it will give me the list of like, hey, all the devices that are available. And then I can also set the starter project, right? So I have to go through this a couple of times, although there's only one project here, so it's probably going to select that. And then I learned today, I can also do this. Wait, Command-Shift-P, and not this, but I can just do debug, space, and it will give me like C#, and it will give me this. And now it's going to run. Woohoo! Okay, so now it's actually going to build this application, this Blazor hybrid application, and it's going to show me this thing. Again, for the people who have been looking into Blazor before, it's going to be the exact same template. Because what kind of like happened is we had the Blazor template lying around, we had the .NET MAUI template lying around, we were like, okay, if we just put 2 and 2 together, 1 and 1 together, we get 2. We just get this Blazor hybrid template, right? So if you're going to look at this, we'll just see the exact same thing. You know, very purple. We have this little sidebar right here with the counter because, you know, what is a template without incrementing something? So we can just click this, and we have this little weather loading thingy, right? So this is the exact template that's also used for a Blazor web application, but now running in a native application on macOS. And then without any changes, I can just say, hey, okay, I want now pick a iOS device, and I'm going to pick this one because that one's already booted. And if I run it again, it's now going to bring up the iOS simulator because I'm running on a Mac, and it's going to show that same application, but it has all this web stuff on board, right? Because we replaced that native UI that we've composed in XAML with .NET MAUI with all this Blazor HTML, CSS stuff, and by default we're using Bootstrap, right? So we know that framework originally by Twitter, I think. And that gives us like all this stuff for free, right? In terms of like responsiveness, and it looks great because I'm not a great designer. Thank you. Yes, finally, someone's picking up on this. Okay, so we have this same thing right here, and you can see like we get all this responsiveness like for free, right? It automatically folds in like that menu, so we can fold it out. And then when it sees like, hey, I do have enough viewport to actually show the thing. So if I turn this around, it's kind of like simulating that I flip to landscape mode. Now you will get that bar on the side because I have like enough space to view everything, right? And it works the exact same. We have the weather thing here, and this is the exact same application without changing anything, just whoop, running it on iOS now. And if I would do the same on like Windows or Android, you would see the exact same thing. Perfect. So if we go over to like, hey, what does this project actually look like? Well, it's just a C# and .NET project, right? So we have this CS project right here. If you want to do like, hey, .NET MAUI stuff, then you're now going to probably have a couple of target frameworks in here. So we can say, hey, .NET 8 Android, we're going to target that, and iOS and macOS. We cannot build like Windows on a Mac, so we have to add a little condition right here with like, hey, whenever we are running on Windows, then we also want to add this target to the targets list right here. And that's how we define like what platforms we all want to kind of like run on and what we want to compile for. Now we have all these other things. I'm not going over this line by line, but we have these other cool things because now suddenly you have this like app shell, right? You're going to have that app icon in the App Store or however you want to distribute it. But we now also have to have that display name, right? So you have that thing green that I want you to remember. And we go into the simulator and we see thing green, right? So this name right here. I can zoom in. No, I can't. Oh, there we go. Thing green, right? That's the thing that we see right here. If I would change this, it would change on the home screen. And this will automatically put it in the right place for like iOS and Android because we're building a cross-platform app, right? We still have to put this in the right place in the metadata for Android and iOS and all the other platforms because, you know, Apple's not going to be like, oh yeah, sure, send me that XE with that Blazor application and we'll make sure it runs. No, 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 that's not how the world works. You have to send us an IPA file, which is kind of like the XE equivalent on iOS, and it has like to have all the data in the right places for Apple to be like, oh yeah, this is an iOS application. This is something we can understand and run. So we have implemented all these kind of like helpers to make that easier for you because else you would have to go into like the platforms folder right here. You can still have all this stuff, right? In the platforms folder, Android, you will have that Android manifest, or for iOS, you will have the info plist, and you will have to know all about these keys and what's going on here. I promise you at some point you still have to know what's going on here because, you know, as much as we try to make things easier, there's going to be a point where you're like, okay, I need to add some stuff here, you're going to learn about this, but everything that we can kind of like do to make that threshold a little bit lower and get you started with cross-platform development, we're doing that with .NET MAUI and also Blazor Hybrid, right? They have a big overlap, kind of like obviously. So there's that, and the same for like the app icon. You can see I've tested it a couple of times. I do that for work. It's not even that bad here, but you can see that .NET icon, right? That's like our default thing. And if you go back to like the project file right here, then you can see, hey, we have little helpers for that as well. We can just specify this resource right here. So resources, app icon, SVG, which is going to be a .NET thing, and then we overlay that on like this color, which is .NET purple, and boom, you have your app icon, right? If you want to have a fancy design, if you like arguing with your designers about how things should be, you can totally do that, right? You can have that custom icon in here, custom splash screen, custom everything, but this is just to get you started because for most people it's like, hey, I want to have this logo on top of this color background, and boom, you have an app icon and a splash screen. Okay, cool. So we have that. Then there is a little bit of XAML involved, right? This is actually our starting point. So MAUI program.cs. This is the main entry of our MAUI application. And if you've been working with ASP.NET before, then this all looks very familiar, right? We have this app builder right here, and we can go out and say, hey, builder.services.add MAUI Blazor web view, right? That's something that we need to do to make the Blazor hybrid scenario light up here. But you can also use this with the dependency injection. We've adopted that from ASP.NET as well. So you can just say here, hey, builder.services.add transient. Cool. My logger in there? Yeah, sure, do whatever, AI, it's fine. So we can register our logger in here, or our, I don't know, get monkey service, or get whatever service. You can just register that in here and use dependency injection as you're used to in ASP.NET. So that's like, you know, making it more recognizable across different C# and .NET projects so that you can get started with this easier. Cool, okay. Then from there, we're kind of like, hey, starting the app, which goes to our little app object right here. And that's this thing with like, hey, resource dictionaries, blah, blah, not super important because we're going to do all that styling in Blazor Hybrid. But here in the background, you can see we're setting our main page, and this is very much a .NET MAUI concept, to a new main page, which is the thing right here, right? So we have this main page file right here with a code behind XAML and XAML CS. And there, you will see, yes, the Blazor web view, the component that I just mentioned. right? So this is a component inside of .NET MAUI. And you've seen, I've ran it now on iOS and macOS, it will span like our whole application, right? So we can now create the rest of our application inside of this Blazor world and do not care that much. You're going to care about a couple of things, but not care that much about what's going on outside of that with .NET MAUI. And you can see, like, hey, what's going on here? We have this little host page, which is in www index.html. We're still, we're going to build stuff with HTML and CSS now, so we need a host for that. So we have this index.html here, like with our usual tags, right? This is how everyone started out building our first website. We don't really have to care about SEO, right? So you don't need to do keywords and that kind of stuff because that's not going to help for your app right here. But we have a couple of other things with like, hey, CSS. The viewport is kind of like important, how things scale, and if you can zoom, yes or no. Because if you're going to zoom in this like web view thingy, then it's not going to feel like a really native application. So that's probably not something that you want to enable, but we have like, I think, a pretty good setup out of the box when you're using this template. Then from there, again, like this is also this is not just very similar, this is exactly the same with Blazor. We're going to have this little div with the ID app, and there we're going to inject kind of like our Blazor stuff, right? So this is where we're going to load our Blazor application into, and then the rest is like, it's nice stuff, but not super important right now. And then from there, we're going to see, like, hey, what else is here declared in that main page example? Sorry for flipping around here. We can see, like, hey, it also points us to root component selector app. So that's the thing that we just saw, right? The div where we're going to inject all the things, so it knows about that now. And then we have this component type of components.roots. Okay. Luckily, in .NET, like the folders line up with the namespaces, so components.roots. Hey, there we are. This is a special Blazor component, which has everything to do with where to, kind of like to wire up where it can find the pages and route you to the right place. So it will be like, hey, app assembly, right? So this is going to point to an assembly, which is going to take the MAUI program, the thing that we just saw, .assembly. So it uses a little bit of reflection of like, hey, this is the assembly I'm going to inspect where I can find my Blazor stuff. And then it's going to kind of like loop through all the pages right there to find like, hey, for which endpoint do I need to load which page right here. And then you have kind of like your found scenario, so your HTTP 200, if you will, and it's going to take that route view, and it's going to wrap it inside of a default layout, which is under layout.main layout. Okay, let's check that. Layout, main layout, there we go. And now we have like this HTML right here, so we don't have to repeat the same layout over and over and over again, right? That's not what we like to do. So we have this layout that's going to be wrapped around all these things, so it's kind of like cascading, index.html, main layout inside of that, and then the page that you want to go to inside of Blazor inside of that. That we render here with like this at body. Do you have in Norway, do you have a special name for this at sign right here? Anyone? Krul alpha. That's my new favorite word right now. Okay. In Dutch, it's apenstaartje. So that's also fun. Which literally translated is like monkey's tail. Right? Makes sense, right? If you look at it now. Look, little monkey and a tail. Whoop. No? All right. I'll try to introduce in the Netherlands as well. Krul alpha. Was that it? Perfect. So we're going to load it in there, right? So whenever in Blazor you see kind of like the Krul alpha or the at sign, you will know that it makes the connection between C# and .NET, right? So between HTML and the C# and .NET side. So here we are going to kind of like inject the Razor pages, and those we are finding here. So whenever this roots thing is going to scan our assembly, one of the things it's going to do is look at these pages and look for this kind of like helper right here, add page / is kind of like the index. So whenever it, nothing is specified in the address bar, which we don't have, but if this were a browser application, it would have the address bar and just a /, nothing else. It would load this page, right? The home page. Where, hello world, perfect. If you would go to /weather, you would go to this thing, right? And if we have /counter, we have this thing. So that's how it's going to happen. It will make an index of all of these things, and then whenever you go to this thing, it will load the actual content right here, inject that in the main layout right here, and then we have like a full page that it will render inside of that web view. Perfect. And if we look at this thing, like the counter, current count, okay, add current count, right? So we have that little special sign here again, and whenever we see that, we now know, hey, this is going to bridge us to C# and .NET. So we can go here to this, we have this add code block, again, something very special, and inside of that we can write kind of like our code behind for this thing. So we can say, hey, private field int current count is 0, and we can kind of like data bind that to this thing right here. And it will update automatically. You saw that, like this is the whole code that you saw for that page. Whenever I start clicking that button, it would like increment this thing right here. No extra code needed, right? It will just automatically see, hey, oh, something changed, I need to reevaluate this thing right here. And then we have this button with a class. Well, this guy comes from Bootstrap, so I don't need any design skills. That's perfect. And then we can say, hey, we have these on-click handlers. And this is something that's in the HTML specification, right? So we still have like all of our old school HTML kind of like JavaScript connections right here. But again, if you kind of like put the @ sign in front of that, you can now suddenly put a C# method inside of that. So we have add on click, increment count, and you can see, hey, that's this thing right here, and we update that variable, and everything updates automatically. So that's kind of like how all of that fits together. Now I'm burning through time pretty quickly. So let's quickly show you kind of like the hybrid scenario, where you are going to mix like, hey, the native .NET MAUI stuff with the Blazor hybrid stuff, just to give you some indication of what that looks like. So I'm not going to save this. And if we go to this main page, like I said, like, hey, now it's going to fill this whole Blazor web view with this content page, right? Content page is a built-in thing for .NET MAUI as well. But let's make this a tab page, which is also a concept in .NET MAUI. And if you want to kind of like guess what this does, it shows multiple tabs, right? Surprise, surprise. And now we are not, we shouldn't put components directly inside of this. Children of a tab page should be a page itself, so that each tab is a separate page. So if we're going to say, hey, this is now a content page, and we could give it a little title so that it shows up nicely, and we're going to say, oh, evaluation, right? But then spelled correctly, is going to be green. So we have this content page right here. I need to close it. We have this content page. I can't type under pressure. Content page. It's a good thing I don't present on a stage right now. So now we have this content page right here, and this is going to be one tab, right? So I have this Blazor web view, which is going to be one tab, and then if I do another one, content page / content page, and inside of this one, I make it a title and say MAUI. Let's just do that. And I'm going to declare a little label right here with font size big enough that the person in the back can see it as well, 25. Oh, come on. 25. Text is, hello, amazing, best audience I've ever seen in Oslo, right? And we do that, and we give it a little color maybe. Text color is Alice blue. Yeah, sounds good. Let's do it. Okay, so and if we run this, let's see if I can make that work. Also, by the way, I like to do the commands right here, but if you're like more a clicky person, if you have the .NET MAUI extension installed, which you have because we are going to work with that, you also get this like curly braces right here with a couple of options, and you can kind of like do it more of the Visual Studio way, where you can say like, hey, oh, I want to select this debug target, which is an iPhone 15, or you can just get the full list right here, and I want to now do it on my Mac again. That's a little bit faster, and you can say, hey, my starter project selected here as well, and you can select all the things that way, right? And you could pin it to this little bottom bar right here, and you will have all the options right there as well. Kind of like the downside that I have with this is that you have to have a CS or an example page open, because if I don't have anything open, then Visual Studio cannot really understand what the context is that I'm trying to do here. Now suddenly my options are gone, and I need to go into something useful to actually get them back, right? So I think it's super confusing, but it's fine. It's fine. So if I run this again, we'll now see that same sort of application that I've just shown you, that I've just created, but now we will have two tabs, and those tabs will look and feel as they are supposed to on macOS. Oh no, oh I know what's going on. And I will have those two tabs, and one is going to show all the Blazor content, and one is going to be not very impressive, but have that label with like that translates how a label should look like on macOS and be that native component. So what is going on right here is that I changed on this main page this to a tab page, and Every XAML page has a code behind, so we have this XAML.cs, and then the way this works is like, hey, a main page also specifies like what its base type is, and it's a partial class, right? The partial class is like one part XAML, one part code behind, so that's the way the XAML works. But here, pro tip, you don't need this one. All right, so you've learned at least one thing today, right? You don't need to do the inheritance right here. You can just say, hey, this is a main page, and it will infer from here like what it actually should inherit from. So now, I'm a senior developer, I promise you, it is going to work, right? Okay, so it is going to actually compile, thank you. So it is going to actually compile and show you the thing that I want you to show. Yes, this is just security stuff from macOS. And now what we will see is like, hey, we're going to have this one tab with a Blazor application, see? So this is still fully functional, all the things are right in here, and then if you look really closely, you can give it an icon, and you could give it all these things. We will have this other tab, this is how it would look like for a macOS application, and we will have, oh, Alice Blue was maybe not the best choice, but you can see this little label right here. Oh, hard reload, yeah. So I hear in my ear right here that we also have a functionality called hard reload. So without stopping this, just keeping this in my debug session right here, I can just go in here and say, hey, I want to change the color of this thing, and let's just make it, sorry, green. Oh, green, good idea. I don't know who said that, but that's an amazing idea. So if I make this green, and I bring it up again, it's not green. Save it. I saved it. Maybe I don't have the right version right here. So what should happen if you have like the latest version right here of this stuff, you will have hard reload. It says hard reload right here, so I think I have something not set up correctly, but hard reload is kind of like our technology, and they're working on it, so that's why they're very passionate about it. Where you can, you do not have to leave your debug session. You could change all these things here, styling-wise, code-wise. We also have C# hard reload. Without stopping your debug session, you can change all these things so you don't have to kind of like stop and deploy again, and et cetera, et cetera. Especially if you're going to deploy to like mobile devices. It can take a long time. So, you know, then if you find out like, oh, Alice Blue is not going to show up correctly for this amazing audience in Oslo, and I want to change it to green, then you don't have to kind of like stop and restart this whole thing again, and it will save you a bunch of time. Perfect, okay. So we have all that. Now, let me see if I can quickly switch over to Windows for this epic demo that hopefully is going to work. Pressure is on now, because this one already kind of failed. So let me see, remote desktop. Let's see if this works. If not, I'm just gonna continue on macOS. No, this seems to work, that's fine. So for all your Windows users out there, whoop, over to Windows World, bam, there we go. And we could do the exact same thing, right? We have this thing in Visual Studio. If you just go to the Visual Studio installer, you can just click a little checkbox for like .NET MAUI that will bring in also all the bits for Blazor Hybrid, and you're basically good to go, right? This helps you a little bit more with setting up like Android emulators and that kind of stuff, but it's all going to be fine. Now I have this crazy cool application right here, which allows us to kind of like interactively, also for the people on the live stream, you can just join. It will be a little bit harder to pick up this physical copy of the book, but we'll figure something out. We can play Pictionary. We're going to do that. Still no applause. No, it's fine. So I got all this. And I'm not going to go over this like line by line, project by project, because I don't have the time. I'd love to do that. And if you're like, okay, I want to sit here for the rest of the evening, that's fine by me. I'll just keep talking until someone tells me to not to. But what I want to show with this demo is like, you can use C# and all of this good stuff, kind of like from front to end. Because what this has, you remember that I talked about Signal R, right? So I have this little server right here, ASP.NET, go to program.cs. This is like 10 lines. I have this full Signal R server set up in ASP.NET. I right-click, deploy it to Azure, and now I can facilitate this whole online multiplayer game, right? Again, I'm not going to go over this whole thing, but this makes it enables me to have this real-time connection with a app built in Blazor, which is what you're going to use. I have an app here with .NET MAUI, so that I can draw on this thing right here. And we can just use from front to back, like all the ways, full stack, backflip stack. You can do all the things with C# and .NET. So we have this thing. Then I have a couple of things. I have a couple of ingredients, because while I was building this, I was like, okay, you are going to see a Blazor application, which is a web Blazor application on your phone that allows you to kind of like vote on to guess what I'm going to draw right here. Then I need an application to to draw it. So let's just deploy that one. I've set it as my starter project, so let's do it on a Windows machine. and I'm going to have that. But then I was like, okay, if we inspect the code right here, we're going to see what it all is. But then I had like the code. Let me see if I can quickly pull it up here. It's all in the main page because this is demo code. I can get away with that, right? Doot, doot, doot. And I had something with like, oh, we're going to start this session. I don't know if I can find it, but it will obviously like generate a word. And then I would just print that to like console write line. I was like, uh-oh. That's not going to show up, or it's going to show up on my screen, and you will all know, right? It's an easy guess. It's just going to be who's the first. So I was like, okay, that's not great. So what I also did is like, I can create a Blazor MAUI, a Blazor hybrid application that runs on my Android phone, and that will, only give me that secret word, so you don't see it. I get it over here. I start drawing. You start guessing. Someone wins a prize. Everyone cheers, and we get out of here with throwing a little green paper in there. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Let's see if this one came up. Okay, so yeah, this is the application right here. I got the Android phone right here, and by the power of modern technology, I can link that to, I'm not going to show you the word, don't worry, but I can link that here to my Windows laptop as well. Might take a little bit here. So you can see my little screen. And I have like that same application that you saw here for drawing. I took that exact same application and deployed it to Android as well. And that's like really cool, right? I didn't need to change anything. Now, obviously it isn't very optimized. Like I optimized this very minimalistic design for desktop, as you can see. But I can also just as well run it on Android right here. So this is like the same application right here, right? See? I'm holding it up, but you can see it on my screen, so this is really dumb. But you can see it's the same application, right? And if I hold it landscape, it's a little bit more closer to what you can see here, his little big brother. But this is the same application. I can draw on both, right? I can do bloop right here and bloop right here. This is the exact same code running on Windows and Android. But what's the real thing here is the Blazor hybrid application, which is just the default template, but it's going to tell me the secret word is. So I'm going to click here on start, then it's going to show me the secret word. You're going to guess it. The guesses will show up here on the right, and then someone's going to guess it correctly, right? So to do that, go to, let me bring up some text right here. Whip out your phones. It's allowed right now. And go to gerald.fyi/Bob, because I asked ChatGPT, what should I call this application that does Pictionary, where I doodle a little bit and came up with like Bob Ross Doodles. I was like, yes, Bob Ross. I'm getting, a couple of people are like, Bob Ross? I don't know. Look it up on TikTok or something. You will probably find some Bob Ross stuff. gerald.fyi/Bob. You should get a little page where you should enter your name, right? Don't do anything obscene. This is recorded. Your mother is going to watch this too, so please don't do that. And then we're going to have guesses. Now, this demo has failed a couple of, oh yes, green, Layla, thank you, yes, green. Good suggestion. More green. Okay, it's not green. It's not green. It's a random word. Just to give you an idea, I think I have like, okay, the guesses are coming in. This is looking promising. Just to give you an idea, I think it's on the server. We have a list of words. This is kind of like the category that you're looking for, right? Dog, cat, cow, horse. Nothing too fancy, right? Okay, so we got it. This is kind of like fun story. I'm gonna have to talk a little bit fast after this, but fun story. There was one time where this demo failed. It didn't work. And I showed this list, and someone remembered pizza, and it would be like, oh yeah, pizza. And it was correct. I was like, oh, phew, demo saved. So probably more fun for me than for you, but it's fine. I'm up here, you're not. So, okay, pizza. No, I didn't press start game, okay. And I have this wonderful book here by Peter Nijs. I don't think he's here. From Belgium, my good friend wrote a book on like the MVVM pattern for .NET MAUI. So if that's something that you want to win, then definitely try to do all the things here. Okay. Wait, did I not do my screen here? Okay, I'll just leave it here. So hopefully it doesn't show up, okay? Then I'm going to show that here very secretly for me. Come here, okay? Then when I press start, I should get a word. Oh yes, yeah, okay. It's a pretty easy one, so go fast, okay? Okay. Okay. I'm gonna do the emoji version. Oh yes, ghost, Andreas, nice. Is it Andreas Reitberger by any chance too? Cool. Andreas, come see me after the session to collect your little book, or we'll figure something else out. Okay, super fun, like, super fun little game. I think so. Thank you. Again, no applause, it's fine. And yes, I made it. All right. So this is just a little silly example of like, hey, how you can create this little multiplayer game with like, all this stuff, and then end-to-end C#, Blazor, MAUI, all the ingredients right here. So that is really, really cool. Phew! I'm just glad this worked. It keeps drawing. Stop. Okay. So let's go back to a couple of last slides before I let you go. We have like more serious examples. This is one, which is kind of like a reference case, showcase that we built ourselves at Microsoft, which is .NET Podcast. I think technically this has been archived, but it still has like super interesting bits. But we just moved on to a next thing that we also found interesting. But it still works. You can still like pull it all down. It's all open source. It has like the full front end and back end microservices. All the buzzwords are in there. But what's really cool from like a .NET MAUI perspective and Blazor hybrid perspective is that the app, the mobile app that's in here, is built twice. Once with like .NET MAUI, so all the things XAML, all translating to native components, and then one with Blazor Hybrid, and that shares code with like the website, which is also built in Blazor, right? So you can kind of like see the same app built twice, and you can see kind of like the differences and similarities between the both and what each approach would kind of like bring you. Then we now have the E# architecture sample, so you can go to kind of like same concept, and we use these projects to kind of like benchmark, figure out performance issues, that kind of stuff. Not just for .NET MAUI and for Blazor Hybrid, but for all the kind of like .NET broad things that we have. So super interesting stuff right here if you're looking to spend a rainy afternoon go figuring this stuff out. Okay, so we're going to go for a quick beer right after this, or I am at least, although this kind of like, I think this beer is I'm gonna have to pawn off my MacBook to buy that here in Norway, I found out. So, there's that. But before I let you explore on your own, I get these questions, right? Like, when should I use, or should I use .NET MAUI Blazor? Or, should I use .NET MAUI? When should I kind of like do these things? When should I use Blazor, right? We have all these flavors right now. And you can kind of like maybe see where the slides were designed for me and where I had to start designing slides myself. I don't know. But the answer to kind of like these questions is always the ancient answer with all these software development things, like it depends, right? If you are like, whoops. Did I do this correctly? If you want to go for that full reach, if you want to reach all clients with a browser and just want to have your stuff running there, go with Blazor, because that runs on everything that has a browser and just supports the latest HTML and CSS things. If you want to be like, hey, I want to reuse my Blazor application that I'm already developing, or I want to have that app icon in the store and really push that, but I only have web developers here that know HTML, CSS, but they are willing to learn a little bit. The sky's the limit. You are going to go with that hybrid route that we've just seen, basically. And if you really want to have the power, the performance of the underlying platform, then you want to go with a framework that belongs on that platform, right? Ideally, for me, that would be .NET MAUI. But if you know that it's only going to be ever Windows, then it's probably going to be like WinForms, WinUI, WPF, that kind of stuff, because that platform is designed to run on that device. And for .NET MAUI, of course, it works because there's a thin layer that we put on top of that, but it still translates down to whatever should be used on that platform. Now, if you are, I don't think there were like a lot of Xamarin 2 UI people, but there is going to be a talk tomorrow by my wonderful, amazing colleagues, Maddie and Sweeky, who are going to tell you everything about modernizing your .NET MAUI applications, or modernizing your apps with .NET MAUI. And then I think I have one final slide. Oh no, this is embarrassing. Okay, thank you so much for joining my sessions. I hope you will have a wonderful rest of NDC. Thank you for laughing at my hilarious jokes. Have some stickers as well if that's something that you want to put on your laptop. So make sure to get those. I'm here for questions. I'll be here around until Friday. Andreas, come find me for the book. Thank you so much.